Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jay Ranky on the LJ Ranky Travel Channel. This video is going to be different than usual. All my videos thus far have been less than 3 minutes long. This one is going to be longer, and I'm specifically addressing the students at Wing School in Wing, North Dakota. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 4 o'clock in the morning in Kracow, Poland. I'm in a motel meeting room in the motel where we're staying. I couldn't sleep and I thought, I've got to get a video done for the kids in Wing. So here it is, people. And it's 4 in the morning, just like I'm in Wing, okay? But there's some things that have happened that I wanted to tell you about. But so I'm just going to take the time to do it. So thank you for your patience with me. One of the things, I want to give you a background before we left for Europe, okay? I want to give you some follow-up. Remember the 2 people that hadn't gotten paid? Remember that I was working through some people with that? Guess what? They got paid at the beginning of the summer. Yes. And then the gentleman, it turned out the business got sold. And the gentleman who'd been living there needed to move. His sister in Maryland invited him to come and live with her. And I said, I'll drive you to Maryland, because the gentleman could not drive himself through Chicago. There's just no way he wouldn't be able to do that. So guess what? I took a trip to Maryland. I drove him to Maryland. And because I was going in DC, I scheduled some time in DC. I ended up meeting with members of the staff in Senator Hoeven's office, Senator Cramer's office, and I met Representative Fedorchak and some of her staffers in her office. So I had a great time in Washington, D.C. And each one, remember my little Horton Hears a Who ornament? I gave each one the same ornament with a little pink puff attached to the trunk of Horton. And I did it on behalf of Lutherans for Life, because I'm part of Lutherans for Life. And I taught them, and I reminded them that it stands for a person's a person, no matter how small. And then when I got back to North Dakota, I and my wife and some other folks from Lutherans for Life, we met with Governor Armstrong, and we gave him the same thing. We had a great visit with the governor. Hey, folks, we've got some great folks in Congress and in governorship. I'm really, really pleased. I got to tell you what. So anyway, that's the little background. The people got paid. I got to spend time in D.C., and I also spent 5 hours when I was in D.C. at the Holocaust Museum. I'd never been there before. It was very, very good. I did a series of videos from D.C. I won't bother with those now, but the Holocaust Museum was very, very powerful. And a nice prelude to seeing what I'm going to tell you about now, the Anne Frank House, and also Auschwitz. So a couple of other things. Let's see. I want to tell you about, there were 3 things I wanted to tell you about that sort of relate to our time in class, all right? One was we did make it to the Anne Frank House in Amsterdam. It was very, very meaningful. What they've done is they bought, there was a series of houses. They're all built together. They bought several houses next door so that you actually enter the Anne Frank house from the side. You come in from the street off to the side, not the main entrance. And then you see the warehouse down below, the working spaces, because, they lived in the back and upstairs where her father worked. A couple of notable things about that. One is the way they do the tour is you get a little audio device, and you point it at numbers in the rooms as you walk through, and it plays audio. So you're just listening to your audio device. That means it's quiet. Nobody says a thing while you're walking through that house. And it was really appropriate because it's a very reverent time. You work through the business part of that building, then you go upstairs and into the back where they lived. And it's quiet the whole time, even though there's quite a few people there. Something that I would say startled me was how small the living area was. 2 floors. One floor was the bedrooms and the bathroom. The upstairs was the living area. And I'm not sure if I got the bathroom in the right spot, but it was small. And then you saw the ladder that went up to the attic. We could not go into the attic, but you could see there were windows from up above in the attic, and you can understand why Anne would have wanted to be in the attic, just to get out of those 2 rooms. It was so small. 2 other things that really struck me was it was very meaningful to hear the bells of the church, just really, just a few doors away, the Westerkirk, to hear those bells. That Anne used to love to hear those bells. And something in the house that really moved me was the fact that you could see on one wall where her parents had monitored her growth and her sister's growth in the time that they were there. And to see that the parents do, you monitor your children's growth, that they did that there, and to see that on the wall, that was very, very meaningful. The way that your tour ends is they actually spend quite a bit of time about the only family member that survived, and that was Anne's father. I did not realize that he was one of the survivors of Auschwitz. He was sick, and so he did not leave Auschwitz when they, at the end of the war, when they were trying to hide Auschwitz and all the horrors they were doing. They moved a lot of people from Auschwitz, but he stayed there because he'd been sick, and so he was there when it was freed, when the Russians came through and they freed the prisoners from Auschwitz and opened those things up. So quite a bit of time at the end of the tour is looking at what happened to him in the time after they're being housed there. But to see where they were for 2 years, how small that area was really, really powerful. There's so much more I could tell you about. 2 other things I do want to say, and that is for you, 11th, especially 11th and 12th graders, when we were in Berlin, we visited the border, different border areas between East and West Berlin, because West Berlin was part of, Berlin was in East Germany after the war. The Russians took that whole area, East and West Berlin. But West Berlin was like an American and French and English fortress in the middle of a communist country. That was after the war. But the U-2 pilot, Gary Powers, remember that he'd been in prison in Russia for several years. When they traded him to the Americans, they did it on a bridge between West Berlin and East Germany. We walked across that bridge, and I thought, this is where Gary Powers got given back to the Americans. That was kind of cool. And then the third thing that struck me, and it made me think of school, was the fact that as we were walking down one street in Berlin, I saw a man doing art on the side of the street. He had a big a panel with some borders on it, and he was doing sand art. He was shaping sand in the shape of a dog. And I talked to him, and he spoke English. People, you would not believe how much English is over here, especially in Germany. But even since then, people, even in Poland, people try to speak English. It's not as familiar to them, but a lot of people do speak English. And I'm telling you what, you go to museums, folks, English is everywhere. But anyway, this man on the street, I asked him how long did it take him to shape this beautiful, there was a dog nursing her puppies. It was a sand sculpture. It was really, really well done, and maybe like 3 feet long and, maybe a foot high. It was really a significant little sand sculpture. Of course, by the end of the day, he would, it would be replaced. But I said, how long have you been doing this? He said, about 4 hours. And then I said, where are you from? And he said, Romania. And it made me think of the castle. Remember I showed you a castle? We spent several days looking at a castle this last year on our Fivers. That castle was in Romania. And I kind of thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And he was so friendly, and he was so glad to talk to an American. And I just want to say, you guys, as English speakers, you have a key to the world around you. And I would so love to come and spend time in Poland and teach English to some of these people. There's so many more things I could tell you about you students in Wing. But I just want you to know that I've thought about you, and I wanted to connect, give you a little bit of update about some of the stuff we've talked about, and to say thank you for everything, and God bless you, and hope to be talking to you again someday. Thank you and hello from Kracow, Poland, middle of the night at the motel where we're staying. Thank you, goodbye, and God bless.